How could one man, even the wisest of them all, rule a vast kingdom, manage a temple that reflected the glory of the Creator himself, and at the same time share his life with 700 wives and 300 concubines? The number alone is shocking, but what lay hidden behind these golden walls went far beyond the simple pleasures or whims of a king. Solomon's harem was not just a collection of women, it was an entire world, a living city within the palace walls, where politics, desire, faith and power intertwined in a secret dance that would forever change the history of Israel. Imagine Jerusalem awakening at sunrise. The newly built temple reflected the first rays of dawn on its gold-plated walls, creating a spectacle of light that dazzled even the most powerful foreign visitors. In the heart of this splendor, hidden from the eyes of ordinary people, another scene unfolded. Silent corridors where messengers scurried discreetly, doors opening to announce that a woman would be chosen that night. It was the beginning of a ritual that began at dawn and was only completed in the royal chambers, amid exotic perfumes and hypnotic music. These women were not passive figures, but strategic pieces on a chessboard of power. Each foreign princess represented a political treaty. Each concubine brought with her traditions, gods, and secrets from distant lands. The pharaoh's daughter, for example, was not just another wife. She was a link to Egypt, bringing with her servants, musicians, dancers, and even priests who maintained religious practices alien to the faith of Israel. In the same space, women from Moab, Sidon, and Tyre vied for attention, each bringing their own seduction rituals, rare perfumes, and ancestral music. But how did Solomon maintain order amidst this labyrinth of desires, intrigues, and alliances? It was impossible for him to handle every detail himself, and that's where the real mystery arose. A complex system of servants, eunuchs, scribes, and elders kept the machinery running with almost military precision. Wives couldn't visit each other without permission. Gifts circulated laden with hidden meanings, and even the handmaidens played spy roles, carrying secret messages that could decide the fate of a favorite. At the center of it all was the king, the man who prayed to God for wisdom in dreams. The same man who wrote love songs compared to divine poetry was also the one who allowed each night in his chambers to be an elaborate ceremony where faith and pleasure intertwined. It was said that as one walked through the palace gardens, one could hear the muffled laughter of women competing in dances, songs, and perfumes to win the sovereign's attention. And while everyone saw only a king surrounded by wealth, few realized that in that harem lay the true heart of the empire. It was there that alliances were formed, the loyalty of conquered peoples was tested, and which traditions were decided, which would be absorbed and which rejected. 1,000 women, 1,000 stories, 1,000 secrets, and only one man at the center of it all. But what happened when passions mixed with politics, when beauty became a weapon, and when the king himself began to succumb to the allure of foreign gods? The answer to this question is not just a love story, but a dark revelation about the price of power. Now that we've opened the palace doors, it's time to walk deeper into these hidden corridors, where every stone, every jewel, and every perfume holds truth that defies centuries. Building Solomon's temple and palace was more than a feat of engineering. It was a declaration of power, faith, and mystery. On Mount Moriah, where Abraham had nearly sacrificed his son, now stood a structure that reflected not only the glory of God, but also the ambition of a man who ruled over unimaginable riches. Accounts describe a spectacle that bordered on the impossible. Entire walls covered in gold, monumental columns, doors carved from fine wood, and every detail designed to leave any visitor awestruck by the king's majesty. Endless caravans descended from the mountains bearing Lebanese cedars, the most precious timber in the ancient world. These logs traveled long distances by river and road until reaching Jerusalem, where Phoenician craftsmen, recognized as the most skilled of their era, transformed the raw material into gigantic doors, altars, and sculptures. Beside them, thousands of Israelites, divided into shifts, erected blocks of stone so heavy that they still baffle modern engineers. 7 years of tireless labor, involving more than 180,000 men, were required to shape this grandiose vision. The dimensions were impressive for the ancient world. The main sanctuary measured 30 meters long, 10 meters wide, and 15 meters high, and yet the true grandeur lay not in its size, but in its details. The entire interior was covered in pure gold. There was not a single spot. That did not reflect the light. Cherubim carved from olive wood guarded the Holy of Holies, their outstretched wings creating an atmosphere of mystery that silenced even the most hardened hearts. There rested the Ark of the Covenant, a symbol of the divine presence accessible only to the high priest once a year, on the Day of Atonement. The temple wasn't just religious, it was also a political stage and a symbol of cultural supremacy. Two monumental columns, Jachin and Boaz, marked the main entrance. Their imposing forms and capitals adorned with bronze pomegranates represented stability and strength, a clear message to any foreign visitor. Israel was unbreakable, and right next to the temple rose the even vaster royal palace, a series of pavilions, courtyards, gardens, and halls that housed not only the court, but also the king's gigantic harem. Maintaining this structure required almost supernatural organization. Solomon instituted 24 divisions of priests who rotated, weekly shifts, ensuring that worship never ceased. Each division had specific functions: preparing the showbread, keeping the golden lamps lit, offering sacrifices, and overseeing purification rituals. Everything was meticulously planned so that the temple's glory would never diminish. But behind the brilliance lay secrets. It was said that demons themselves were forced to work on the construction, subdued by Solomon's legendary ring. Stories claim that the gigantic stones were moved not by human strength alone, but by hidden powers that responded to the king's voice. These legends transformed the temple into something even more mysterious, not just a work of men, but an edifice erected between the visible and the invisible, between the physical and the spiritual. And so, while the temple became a beacon of faith, the palace became a labyrinth of pleasures and strategies, a world where political power mingled with the allure of the harem. The gilded corridors reflected both divine glory and human vanity, reminding us that all grandeur carries its price. Now that we've seen the walls surrounding the throne, it's time to cross them and delve into the heart of the harem, where 1,000 women transformed each night into a secret spectacle. Now tell me in the comments, if you could walk inside Solomon's temple, what would catch your attention most? The sheen of pure gold covering the walls, or the mysterious silence of the Holy of Holies? I want to see which detail would impress you most. At the heart of Solomon's palace lay a hidden world, surrounded by high walls and rigorously guarded, where few eyes ever penetrated. This secret space was the harem, a veritable city within a city, capable of housing 700 wives and 300 concubines, each with her own quarters, servants, and routines. It was not just a place of intimate pleasures, but a center of political, cultural, and spiritual power that directly influenced the course of the kingdom. Royal wives occupied luxurious pavilions on the upper floors, overlooking fragrant gardens of pomegranates and grapevines, while concubines resided in equally opulent but less grandiose chambers. Each woman possessed her own royal seal, could conduct business, exchange gifts, and even send letters to her homelands. Scribes kept meticulous records of everything: dowries received, alliances sealed, children born, and gifts exchanged. The harem was run like a complex machine, with overseers, butlers, guards, doctors, midwives, and cooks. Cultural diversity transformed the harem into a fascinating mosaic. Egyptian princesses brought with them priestesses, musicians, and dancers from the Nile, filling the corridors with songs and exotic perfumes. Moabite women taught the art of creating rare essences, while the Sidonians excelled in weaving purple fabrics, a symbol of royalty. Each group preserved its traditions, resulting in a unique multicultural environment where foreign gods, ancient songs, and mysterious rituals coexisted alongside the practices of Israel. This multiplicity didn't quell the competition. On the contrary, it made it even more intense. No wife could visit another without permission, a measure imposed to prevent intrigue, but secret alliances flourished in the corridors, sustained by discreet notes, symbolic gifts, and even by the servants themselves who acted as messengers. A poem written on scented papyrus or a specially prepared cup of wine could change a favorite's fate. Women knew that winning the king's attention meant securing power, wealth, and even political influence for their families. At the center of this machinery was Solomon, the most powerful man of his time, but also the most shrouded in secrecy. For some, he was simply a king blessed by God, with wisdom beyond human comprehension. For others, he was also a ruler who yielded to the pressure of marital alliances and the allure of foreign cultures. The harem reflected this duality. It was both a symbol of glory and a harbinger of fragility. To stroll through the harem gardens was to witness a mixture of beauty and tension. Fountains murmured among fruit trees, while muffled laughter betrayed conspiratorial conversations. Musicians strummed soft harps, dancers practiced sensual movements, and foreign priestesses murmured prayers to gods foreign to the God of Israel. There, religion, eroticism, and politics intertwined in a plot indistinguishable from the other. Solomon's harem was not just a place where 1,000 women vied for the king's heart. It was an arena where the fate of entire nations was decided. Every alliance, every heir, every intimate choice could alter the course of history. It was, in essence, an invisible fortress of power, protected by silk curtains and secrets whispered at midnight. And within these walls, the rituals began that transformed each night into a unique celebration of beauty and seduction. In Solomon's palace, each night was prepared as if for a sacred ceremony. The woman chosen to be with the king wasn't simply summoned to the royal chamber. She underwent an elaborate process that began at dawn. Special messengers walked the silent corridors to discreetly announce the decision, and the chosen woman was immediately led to the so-called House of Purifications, a space entirely dedicated to the preparation of beauty and seduction. There, fountains gushed forth waters perfumed with rare essences, and 7 pools represented the 7 stages of the ritual. Each bath was made with different oils: myrrh, aloe, cassia, cinnamon, and other fragrances that enveloped the body in an aura of mystery. 7 personal servants, usually trusted women brought from the chosen one's homeland, attended to every detail, washing their hair with aromatic oils and braiding it with ivory combs encrusted with precious stones. Their skin was treated with a secret blend of goat's milk, pure honey, and essential oils, creating a delicate glow that reflected the light of the lamps. Nails were painted with henna in elaborate patterns that told stories in ancient symbols, transforming every detail into a message. The body was massaged with warm oils, and soft music filled the room, as if the very air was shaped to prepare the woman's mind and spirit. Nothing was left to chance. Every gesture, every scent, every color had a hidden purpose, to seduce not only the senses, but also the king's soul. Once the body was ready, it was time to woo. Choose the garments. Fine fabrics, so delicate they seemed sewn by invisible spiders, were dyed with rare colors extracted from shells, minerals, and roots from distant lands. The jewelry was not just adornments, but symbols charged with spiritual meaning and powers of seduction: bracelets with mystical inscriptions, necklaces with stones that reflected light in enigmatic hues, rings that represented fidelity and fertility. Meanwhile, the royal bedchamber was prepared with equal attention. Golden censers burned secret resin concoctions, flower petals were scattered over imported silk sheets, and lamps were positioned to create a soft, seductive light. Musicians trained in love songs were positioned in adjacent chambers, playing melodies inspired by the Song of Songs, love poems attributed to Solomon himself. The notes flowed like honey, filling the room with an atmosphere of romance and mystery. Before entering the chambers, the chosen one received instruction from the harem. Elders, respected women who guarded the secrets of the art of love. They taught not only gestures and words, but also how to look, move, and speak in tones that would touch the king's heart. It was a transmission of ancient knowledge, passed down from generation to generation, which transformed each encounter into something unique and unforgettable. Thus, the ritual was not merely physical, it was a carefully crafted performance that united body, mind, and spirit. The woman not only beautified herself, but became a living work, shaped to enchant the most powerful man in the land. And in this performance, there was also hidden power. Each night in the palace was more than pleasure. It was a political act, a silent struggle that could change entire destinies. Imagine being prepared with rare perfumes, sacred baths, and soft music just for a date. Tell me, if you had to choose, which of these elements would have the greatest power to enchant? The perfume, the music, or the lighting in the royal bedchamber? Write your answer below. I'd love to hear everyone's opinions. Within the gilded walls of Solomon's harem, the contests went far beyond beauty. 1,000 women competed not only for the king's affection, but also for the power that affection represented. Every gesture, every smile, every gift concealed intentions that could alter the course of Israel. The harem was an invisible battlefield where the most powerful weapon was not the sword, but knowledge. The most astute wives knew that true influence didn't come from a night in the royal chambers, but from the ability to make themselves indispensable. Some cultivated unique artistic talents, composing music or creating rare perfumes that captured the king's attention. Others used their wits to discreetly participate in discussions of politics and philosophy, offering subtle advice in intimate moments. Thus, they earned something even more valuable than desire: trust. The servants, seemingly secondary figures, were key players in this silent game. They often acted as spies, carrying secret messages, observing movements in the corridors, and reporting every detail to their mistresses. A misinterpreted glance could spark intrigue, and a well-timed whisper could decide the fate of a favorite. The palace corridors vibrated with rumors and conspiracies, as if every stone held untold secrets. Alliances between women also shaped the harem. Wives of different origins joined forces to strengthen their position. A foreign princess might support a local concubine, and together they created a network of influence that extended beyond the palace walls. Gifts circulated laden with hidden meanings: a rare jewel, a poem on fragrant papyrus, a chalice of wine prepared with enigmatic ingredients. Nothing was simple, everything had a hidden purpose. The apparent silence hid intense battles. For some women, the goal was to ensure their children were recognized as legitimate heirs. For others, the desire was simply to remain close to the center of power. Solomon's every decision, a smile, a visit, a word, could be interpreted as victory or defeat. And the older the king grew, the fiercer the competition became, as time grew shorter for those who still dreamed of making their mark on history. It was in this tense environment that stories of spiritual manipulation emerged. Many wives brought amulets, secret rituals, and even foreign gods from their homelands, attempting to attract the king's attention through means that went beyond beauty. Gradually, the harem became not only a place of politics and desire, but also a laboratory for occult practices that began to infiltrate the heart of Israel. Thus, the disputes in Solomon's harem revealed a subtle, silent, yet devastating power play. Every smile concealed a strategy. Every gesture could be a move on the invisible board. And in this game, it wasn't just the king's heart that was at stake, but the future of an entire kingdom. Among all the symbols surrounding Solomon, none aroused as much fascination and awe as the legendary ring he wore on his right hand. Engraved, according to ancient accounts, with the sacred name of God, this artifact was not only a royal jewel, but also a key that granted him authority over forces beyond human comprehension. It was said that with it, Solomon could command angels and demons, make winds obey, waters recede, and even spirits reveal hidden secrets of creation. Legend has it that this ring was used during the temple's construction, forcing invisible entities to move gigantic stones, level the ground, and erect columns that seemed daunting to any engineer of the time. Ordinary workers witnessed blocks of rock weighing tons sliding like feathers, while mysterious chants echoed through the Jerusalem night. For many, it was proof that the temple was not merely a human work, but the result of an alliance between the visible and the invisible. However, the ring's power wasn't limited to engineering. Solomon is said to have used it to interrogate spirits, learning their names, functions, and weaknesses. This knowledge was recorded in secret books, guarded more zealously than palace treasures. These writings, later known as the Testament of Solomon, described encounters with entities that revealed everything from the healing properties of plants to spells capable of protecting against evil forces. But there was also a dark side. Controlling demons didn't just mean receiving obedience. It meant living with dangerous secrets. Some stories claim that Solomon kept spirits imprisoned in bronze vessels, buried outside Jerusalem, so they would never be released. Other narratives tell of nocturnal conversations with entities who taught him the mysteries of the human heart, enabling him to decipher intentions and uncover conspiracies before they even materialized. This mastery over the spiritual world further increased the aura of mystery surrounding the king. To the common people, Solomon was a ruler protected by the Almighty, capable of maintaining order not only among men but also among invisible forces. To outsiders, he was a sovereign who surpassed common wisdom, someone who touched the limits of magic and religion, transforming himself into an almost divine figure. Yet this power also generated fear. Prophets warned that dabbling with hidden forces could open dangerous doors, and that Solomon's curiosity could turn into a trap. The line between wisdom and pride, between knowledge and perdition, became increasingly blurred, and as he used the ring to magnify his glory, voices whispered that the very object that elevated him could one day lead him to ruin. Thus, Solomon's ring remains a timeless mystery to this day. Was it merely a legendary symbol, or truly an instrument connecting the human world with the spiritual? Whatever the answer, its history transformed the palace into a place where every decision carried cosmic weight, and where the line between faith and magic became increasingly blurred. And here I want to hear from you. If you had a ring in your hands capable of controlling invisible forces, would you use this power to build wonders, or would you fear the consequences? Leave your comment, because this choice reveals a lot about how we view power and limits. Solomon's harem was not only a space of luxury and power, but also a veritable mosaic of cultures, traditions, and beliefs that intertwined in the palace's gilded corridors. Each woman who entered this universe brought with her more than beauty. She carried the heritage of a people, the rituals of her homeland, the perfumes of her culture, and the gods who inhabited her memory. Thus, that harem became something unprecedented in the ancient world, a gathering of civilizations under one roof, governed by the desire and politics of a single man. The Egyptian princesses were perhaps the most dazzling. With them came hieroglyphics engraved on luxurious furniture, dancers who moved like serpents to the sound of golden sistrums, and priestesses who knew the secrets of Isis and Osiris. Their translucent linen robes were so delicate they seemed woven from water, and their eyes were painted with black coal that intensified the mystery of each look. They were not just wives, but ambassadors of an ancient culture that fascinated and frightened at the same time. The Moabites, in turn, were renowned for their knowledge of aromatic herbs and rare perfumes. Their rooms exuded fragrances that combined desert resins and medicinal plant oils, capable of intoxicating the senses. Many of them were experts in ancient songs that, it was said, could move even the most hardened hearts. The notes of their melodies echoed through the nocturnal gardens, transforming the air into an irresistible invitation to bewitchment. From the cities of Sidon and Tyre came women renowned for their skill in weaving royal purple, a dye so rare and valuable that only kings could wear it. Brilliant fabrics, a deep red reminiscent of the blood of a sunset, covered their bodies in solemn displays. Their weaving skills transformed the palace halls into veritable living galleries, where each garment told a story of power and status. The Phoenician women brought with them the secrets of sea routes and knowledge of precious stones mined from distant lands. Many of them were trained not only in seduction, but also in high-level conversation, capable of influencing trade decisions that determined the flow of wealth between Mediterranean ports. The presence of these women in the harem made the palace a diplomatic center, as powerful as any throne room. The result of this blend was a court where eroticism blended with diplomacy, and where every dance, every perfume, and every gesture could conceal a political intention. There wasn't a night when traditions didn't intersect. Egyptian rituals alongside Moabite chants, Sidonian dances accompanied by Phoenician music. The harem was more than a private space. It was a reflection of a multicultural empire where love mingled with alliances and where Israel's faith began to be tested by foreign influences. This fusion of cultures transformed the palace into a cauldron of power and risk. Each tradition brought by the wives was a bridge, but also a potential crack. For while it enriched the court with beauty and knowledge, it also paved the way for foreign gods and forbidden practices to gain ground in Jerusalem's gardens. And, in the silence of the harem, this clash of cultures set the stage for consequences that would span generations. Despite being surrounded by 1,000 women, biblical records mention only one of Solomon's sons, Rehoboam. However, historians and traditions suggest that dozens of other princes and princesses were born within the walls of the harem. Each birth was a political event, capable of strengthening alliances with distant kingdoms and creating new lines of succession. And this was precisely where the greatest challenge lay: how to manage such a large line of descendants amid so many mothers vying for the glory of seeing their sons on the throne. In the palace, each child was raised as a promise of a future, Tutors from foreign lands taught languages, philosophy, and science, while Hebrew sages ensured that the traditions of Israel were not forgotten. An Egyptian princess might insist that her son learn the rituals of Isis, while a Moabite woman demanded that the little prince be instructed in the songs of her homeland. Thus, the childhood of Solomon's descendants was marked by a dangerous duality. On one side, the law of Moses; on the other, foreign practices and gods that infiltrated the heart of the kingdom. This multiplicity of influences generated intense rivalries. Each mother dreamed of seeing her son become the legitimate heir. Intrigues, alliances, and conspiracies were woven daily within the harem. Servants carried secret messages, scribes falsified birth certificates, and symbolic gifts were sent to the king as subtle reminders of loyalty. The palace, which should have been a center of order, became a seething cauldron of ambition. Rehoboam, son of the Ammonite woman Naamah, grew up amidst this environment of contrasts. On the one hand, he received a traditional Israelite education, learning about the law and history of the chosen people. On the other, he was constantly exposed to the exotic cultures of his father's foreign wives. This duality would shape not only his personality, but also his reign, which would later be marked by divisions and rebellions. Meanwhile, less favored princesses and princes sought space in secondary spheres of power. Some took on diplomatic roles, representing Israel in distant kingdoms. Others married into alliances that further expanded the palace's political influence. But each union also carried a shadow, the possibility of opening the door to idolatry and practices that silently eroded the people's faith. This dispute between heirs was not just a matter of blood, but of identity. Who would rule Israel after Solomon? A prince faithful to the God of his ancestors, or someone shaped by the influences of foreign gods? This question hung over the palace like an invisible sword, ready to divide not only the royal family, but the entire kingdom. Deep down, the king himself seemed torn. His love for so many women led him to allow each of them to bring their gods, rituals, and ambitions into Jerusalem. And without realizing it, the man who had asked the Almighty for wisdom was planting in his home the seeds of conflict that would tear apart the unity of Israel. Thus, Solomon's sons were not only royal descendants, but living mirrors of the king's choices. Each carried within themselves the weight of a divided spiritual inheritance, which sooner or later would exact a heavy price. Now it's your turn. If you were inside the palace, to whom would you give the throne of Israel? The son, faithful to the people's tradition, or the prince shaped by foreign cultures? I want to see how you would decide this dilemma that changed the course of history. At the beginning of Solomon's reign, Israel experienced a time of unprecedented glory. The royal treasury overflowed with gold, silver, and precious stones. Caravans brought spices, rare fabrics, and exotic animals, and the temple shone like the beating heart of faith. But sustaining such grandeur required more than wisdom. The palace, with its halls, gardens, armies of servants, and harem of 1,000 women, became an economic burden that grew by the day. The richest king in history began to feel the invisible weight of his own abundance. Each wife demanded not only luxurious quarters, but also entire retinues of servants, musicians, cooks, and guards. Palace feasts consumed rare wines and foods from distant lands. Imported jewelry, fine clothing, and furniture drained resources that once sustained the people. To keep pace, taxes were increased, affecting everyone from great merchants to peasants who barely had enough to feed their families. Israel's pride in its sovereign began to give way to a murmur of discontent. And it wasn't just the financial burden. Each foreign woman brought with her not only beauty, but also her gods. Altars began to spring up in the gardens and hills around Jerusalem. Isis, Astarte, Chemosh, Molech, deities foreign to the God of Israel, now received sacrifices under the protection of the king himself. Initially, these cults were seen as diplomatic concessions, gestures of tolerance that strengthened alliances, but gradually Solomon also became seduced, participating in rituals that blended pleasure, idolatry, and magic. Prophets and priests warned of the dangers of this mixture. They denounced that the glory of the temple was being corrupted by the smoke of pagan sacrifices, but their voices were drowned out by the sound of foreign drums and the hypnotic music echoing from the harem courtyards. The king, once seen as a paragon of wisdom, was now accused of dividing his loyalty between the God of his fathers and the gods of his wives. As spirituality fragmented, The people suffered increasingly heavy taxes, forced labor intensified. Thousands of men were conscripted to support royal works, repair palaces, and maintain the luxury of the court. The same system that had built the temple now became an instrument of oppression. Tribes that had once been united began to harbor resentment. The kingdom, which had seemed invincible, began to fracture from within. The grandeur that fascinated the ancient world hid deep cracks. The gold of the walls could not conceal the weight of idolatry, nor could the perfumes of the harem mask the stench of injustice that was beginning to spread through the streets of Jerusalem. Solomon, the man who asked God for wisdom, saw his legacy slowly consumed by the cost of his own abundance and the seduction of traditions that did not belong to his people. The kingdom that had been born as a divine promise was now heading toward the abyss, and the seeds of this decline were being planted within the palace walls themselves, where wealth, idolatry, and heavy taxes intertwined in a cycle no amount of gold could sustain. Solomon's story doesn't end with the gold that covered the temple or the soft music that lulled the nights of his harem. His legacy remains shrouded in contradictions that span the centuries, revealing the human face of a king who dared to touch the boundaries of the divine and the earthly. On the one hand, the man who asked the Almighty for wisdom and received understanding beyond measure. On the other, the ruler who allowed himself to be entangled by passions, dangerous alliances, and strange cults. This duality transformed Solomon into an eternal figure, the wisest and, at the same time, the most vulnerable of kings. The temple he built became a symbol of faith, an architectural marvel that reflected the glory of God and the greatness of Israel. But the same golden walls that enchanted foreign visitors also witnessed rituals that offended the Lord, performed by the women the king loved. Thus, the building that was born as a beacon of divine presence also became the scene of the first spiritual cracks of a chosen people. The 1,000 women who surrounded Solomon cannot be seen merely as luxurious companions. They were key players in a power struggle that shaped alliances, spread cultures, and divided loyalties. Every perfume, every dance, every word whispered in the king's ear carried implications that went far beyond intimacy. The harem was not just a space for seduction, it was the true heart of politics, where invisible decisions changed the fate of entire nations. And then there was the ring, this legendary object which, according to ancient traditions, gave the king authority over demons and spirits, remains one of history's greatest enigmas. Was it merely a myth created to aggrandize his image, or was it truly a spiritual key that allowed him to manipulate forces beyond human comprehension? Whatever the truth, Solomon's ring remains to this day a symbol of the fine line between wisdom and magic, between faith and occult power. The end of his life brought not only accumulated wealth but also heavy consequences. The burden of taxes, harem intrigues, idolatry, and spiritual division paved the way for the great kingdom of Israel to be torn apart after his death. What seemed indestructible proved fragile in the face of its own abundance. The wise man who wrote about the vanity of all things experienced firsthand how power and pleasure can corrode even the most solid foundations. And yet, Solomon's name echoes to this day. His figure inspires respect, mystery, and awe. For some, he is remembered as the king who brought unparalleled peace and prosperity. For others, as the man who opened the doors to idolatry and sowed the seeds of ruin. But perhaps the truth lies precisely in this contradiction. In his glory and in his fall, Solomon represents the reflection of all humanity, capable of attaining divine wisdom and at the same time succumbing to the deepest weaknesses. So, as we look at the Golden Temple, the harem of 1,000 women, and the ring that controlled spirits, a question remains that spans the centuries. What in fact remains? The gold was looted, the temple destroyed, the kingdom divided. But Solomon's story lives on, not as a distant legend, but as an eternal warning about the limits of human power and the hidden price of desiring everything. If this story has captivated you so far, please leave a like and make sure you're subscribed to the channel. It makes all the difference in allowing more people access to these secrets hidden in time. And don't stop there. Click on the video now and keep watching, because the next revelation will reveal even more behind-the-scenes details that almost no one dares to share.